So student, welcome back to this video session. So in this session, we will see in the last session we studied different types of firmware design and how to embed the firmware into the target board. What are the different methods of embedding the firmware into the target board. In this session, we will see how to bring up the board. Like once the firmware is embedded into the target board, then what you have to do? What is the next procedure? The next procedure is you need to power up the board. So when you power up the board, then there may be two chances. The device will function properly according to the way you designed, but there may be chances sometimes the power may end up in a noisy explosion. Some components will get burned. It may happen due to various reasons. Like various reasons is like proper care was not taken when applying the voltage, or applied the voltage in the reverse polarity, or components are placed in incorrect way or in the incorrect polarity order. So all these are different types of reasons. So the prototype evaluation production version must pass through varied set of tests to verify that embedded hardware and firmware functions as expected. So bring up process includes all these different procedures, like whatever prototype evaluation production version, whatever prototype you develop, that must pass through variety of tests to verify that both the hardware and firmware, it will work according to the way you want, according to the way you expected. For that there are certain process includes. So what you have to do, you need to adopt certain procedures, like you need to do the basic hardware checks and validation to make sure that individual component and interconnections are operational, like which involves checking power, clocks, basic functionality connectivity. So that means you need to check all the connectivity, whether it is the proper, whether the clock signal is given proper, whether the power is given properly, or polarity of that, all those things. So you need to check. Then you need to check the firmware verification. Make sure that a processor is fetching the code from the firmware and execution is happening in the expected manner. Then running the advanced validation such as memory validation, signal integrity validation, etc. Now, finally, we will move to now embedded system development environment. So, in the embedded system development environment, consists of development computer PC, where you are going to develop the program. This acts like the art of the development environment. And also in the PC you need to load integrated development environment tool for embedded firmware development, like Keel, what we use in the lab. Then electronic design automation, IDA tool for embedded hardware design. So we have IDE environment and IDA tool for embedded hardware design also. There are electronic design automation tools are there. You can install in your system. Then emulator hardware for debugging at the target board. So there is a difference between an emulator and simulator. You will come to know later stage what is emulator or what is the simulator exactly in the later stage. So emulator hardware for debugging the target board. Then this embedded system development environment should consist of signal sources like CRO, multimeter, logic analyzer. All these things are required to check the output of the embedded hardware. So now we will see IDE. Embedded system development context. With respect to embedded system development context, integrated development environment stands for integrated environment for developing and debugging target processor specific embedded firmware. So IDE is used for developing developing firmware for the target processor. For example, suppose you are going to develop some program. For example, you are going to develop, interface AD, like analog to digital converter, or you are going to interface LCD to LPC2148 kit. That time what you do, you develop the program for that one. You develop the program for that one. You develop the program for the target processor. So that is done with the help of integrated development environment software, IDE, right? X. So IDE software, what it consists exactly? IDE software consists text editor, cross compiler, linker, debugger. So IDE software consists text editor, in the text editor you write the source code, then cross compiler platform, cross compiler platform, like in your laptop you develop the firmware for the target board, that the compiler is called cross compiler, linker and debugger. Some IDE may provide interface to target board emulators, target processor controller, flash memory required programmer. IDE may be command line based or GUI based also. Next one is deassembler, decompiler. What is a deassembler and decompiler? So deassembler is a utility program which converts machine code into target processor specific assembly codes instruction. Deassembler converts machine code into assembly code. The process of converting machine code into assembly code is known as deassembler. Decompiler, a utility program translates machine code into high-level language. So we studied compiler and assembler. Here it is a reverse process. Disassembler and decompiler. So why disassemblers and decompilers are used? It is deployed in reverse engineering. What do you mean by reverse engineering? Reverse engineering is the process of revealing the technology behind the working of a product. Suppose if you have a product and you want to know the technology behind it, then you will go for reverse engineering. Reverse engineering in embedded product development is employed to find out the secret behind the working of a popular proprietary product. Deassemblers, decompilers are powerful tools for analyzing the presence of certain virus information in executable image, etc. Deassembler, decompilers are available either as a freeware tools readily available for pre-download from the internet, or as a commercial tool also you can purchase that one. It is not possible for deassembler, decompiler to generate an exact replica of the original assembly code or high-level source code in terms of the symbolic constant and commands used. However, deassembler and decompilers generate a source code somewhat matching to the original source code. Now we'll move to the simulators, emulators and debugging. You know what is the simulators? Simulators and emulators are two important tools used in embedded system development. What is a simulator? You know, simulator is a software tool used for simulating the various conditions for checking the functionality of the application. For example, in the lab you have executed so many software experiments by using Keil software. So you are executing the software in you execute that program in on an Intel machine that contains Intel processor and Windows operating system. There is no ARM processor, but you have software like Keil software which acts like a simulator and which will show when you write a program how the register will work, how the register will do the transfer of data from one register to other register, how the memory will work. All these are simulated in your machine. So try to understand, student, there is no ARM processor in your system where you write the program, but still you execute that program. So how it is possible? That is because of the simulator. So integrated development environment itself will providing simulator support and they help debugging the firmware for checking its required functionality. So certain simulator has got a GUI model. GUI means graphical user interface. For example, whatever Keel software we are using, it is a GUI based. Now, for example, if the product under development is a handheld device to test the functionality of the various menu and user interface, a soft form model of the product with the user interface is given at the end of the product can be developed in the software. Now, what is the emulator? Emulator is a hardware device which emulates the functionality of the target device. Emulator is a hardware device which emulates the functionality of the target device and allows real-time debugging of the embedded firmware. So, by emulator is nothing but it emulates the target device and allows real-time debugging of the embedded firmware. Here you can do real-time debugging of the embedded firmware. Now, simulators. Simulators simulate the target hardware and firmware execution can be inspected using simulators. So, I request. So, simulator simulates the target hardware and the firmware execution can be inspected using simulators. So, the features of the simulator based debugging are listed below. What are the features? Features are like it is a purely software based, doesn't require real target system. I told you that it doesn't require real target system. Very primitive, lack of featured I/O support. Everything is a simulated one, lack of real time behavior. There won't be a real time behavior. So, advantage of simulator based debugging. Advantages of simulator based debugging. Advantages of simulator based debugging. Simulation based debugging techniques are simple and straightforward. What are the major advantages? No need for original target board. Without original target board you can simulate. Real hardware is not required. Hence firmware development can start in well in advance. Simulate the I/O peripherals. You can simulate I/O peripherals. You can simulate abnormal conditions with simulators. These are the different types of, advantages of the simulator based debugging. What is the disadvantages, limitations? Limitations of the simulator based debugging is, though simulation based firmware debugging technique is very helpful in embedded application, they possess certain limitations. Like we cannot fully rely on the simulator based debugging. You can't fully depend. Deviation from the real behavior. Developer may not be able to debug the firmware under all possible conditions of the input or circumstances. Developer cannot be able to debug under all possible input combination or circumstances. Under certain operating condition, we may get some particular result that need not to be same when the firmware runs in the production environment. Suppose for example you give some input and you will get some output, okay, but that may not be same when it run in the actual real time environment. Lack of real timeliness. The major limitation of the simulator based debugging is that it is not real time in behavior. That is the thing. Next, emulators. What is the emulators and debuggers? Debugging in an embedded application is the process of diagnosing the firmware execution, monitoring the target processor, registers and memory, while the firmware is running and checking the signals from the various buses of the embedded hardware. Debugging process in embedded application is broadly classified into two. One is hardware debugging, second one is firmware debugging. So what is hardware debugging? Hardware debugging deals with the monitoring the various bus signals, checking the status of the lines, target hardware, What is a firmware debugging? Firmware debugging is examining the firmware executions of the flow, changes of the various registers, status of the various registers, all these things. So there are two types of debugging. One is hardware debugging, and second one is the software firmware debugging. So firmware debugging is performed to figure out the bug or the error in the firmware. So the following section describes the improvement over the firmware debugging. So what is that? Incremental EPROM burning technique. This is the most primitive type of firmware debugging technique where the code is separated into different functional code units. Instead of burning the entire code into EPROM chip at once, the code is burned in incremental order. So next one is inline breakpoint based firmware debugging. Inline breakpoint, you know what is a breakpoint? Inline breakpoint based firmware debugging is another primitive method within the firmware where you want to ensure that firmware execution is reaching up to the specified point. Insert an inline debug code immediately after that point, and that is called as a breakpoint. The debug code is for example, the debug code is a printf function which prints the string given as per the firmware. So you can insert that printf statement at each point where you want to ensure firmware is executing properly or firmware execution is covering till that point. So monitor program based firmware debugging. Monitor program based firmware debugging. What is this? Monitor firmware based program debugging. Monitor program based debugging is the first adopted method for firmware debugging. In this approach, monitor program which acts like a supervisor is developed. Monitor program controls the downloading of user code into the code memory, inspects the various registers and memory locations, etc. Also, monitor program implements the debug functions as per the predefined command. Monitor program always listens to the serial port of the target device and according to the command received from the serial interfaces. So all these are the different methods. Different ways of monitor different procedures involved in the monitor program based firmware debugging. Next, you can see here the monitor program connects the following set of minimal features. So here monitor ROM, target CPU, and command set interface to establish the communication with the debugging application. Debugging application is there. Then firmware download option to code memory. Then examine the modified processor register and working memory RAM, single step program execution, set breakpoints in the firmware execution, send debug information, etc. All these things you can do in the monitor debugging. Next one is the in-circuit emulator based firmware debugging. In-circuit emulator based. First of all, you will see now here what is a simulator and what is emulator. Simulator is a software application. Precisely duplicates mimics the target CPU and simulates the various features. Emulator is a self-contained hardware device which emulates the target CPU. Emulator hardware necessarily emulation logic and it is hooked to the debugging application running on the development PC. So you can see emulator environment where you can see debugger applications, and we have something called as emulator POD which emulates. So it emulates. So emulator POD is the art of any emulator system. So what are the different devices in this design? So different devices are emulator device. Emulator device is a replica of the target CPU. You are not using actual target, but you are using emulated this one device, which receives various signals from the target board through device adapter connected to the target board and performs the execution of firmware under control of debug commands. Then we have something called as emulation memory. Emulation memory is the random access memory incorporated in the emulated device. So you can see here this this contains memory also. So it acts like a replacement of the target board's EPROM. Actually, you are not using your target board where the code is supposed to be downloaded after each firmware modification. Hence, the original EPROM memory is emulated by the RAM emulator. This is known as ROM emulation. Emulator control logic. What is emulator control logic? Emulator control logic is the logic circuit used for implementing complex hardware breakpoints, trace buffer trigger detection, trace buffer control, etc. So, emulator control logic circuits are also used for implementing logic analyzer functions in the advanced emulator device. And a device adapter acts like interface between the target board and the emulator POD. Device adapters are normally pin-to-pin compatible socket which can be inserted and plugged into the target board for routing the various signals. So third one is on-chip firmware debugging. As the advances in semiconductor technology has brought a new dimension to this debugging. So today, almost all the processor controls incorporate built-in debugging modules called on-chip debug. This is a very good feature supporting fast and efficient firmware debugging. So, target hardware debugging. So, you need to debug the target hardware also. What and all you need to check in the target hardware? For various hardware related reasons, there may be certain issues will come in the hardware also because of various type of reasons like dry soldering of the components, missing connection in the PCB due to unnoticed errors in the PCB layout design, or misplaced component, signal corruption due to noise. All these things you need to check. Hardware debugging is not similar to firmware debugging. Hardware debugging involves monitoring of various signals of the target board. Like you need to check the various signals, one by one signals, address lines, port pins, etc. Checking the interconnection among the various components, etc. So for all this hardware debugging, we need certain type of tools. So one tool is magnifying glass lens. Why we need this one? This is required. This is similar to watch repairer. Magnifying glass is the primary hardware debugging tool. So what is the use of this one? Magnifying glass is a powerful visual inspection tool. With the magnifying glass, the surface of the target board can be examined thoroughly for dry soldering components, missing components, improper, like suppose any dry solders are there or any component is missed, you cannot visual it by seeing normal board, because the components are most of the components are so tiny, it is not normally if the particular component misses, then you cannot you will not find it out immediately. For that you need to use magnifying glass. So by using magnifying glass you can check the improper soldering track on the PCB also, or if any track got damaged, that also you can notice. All these things you can do by using a magnifying glass lens. Next one is multimeter. So we have seen the multimeter. So what is the use of multimeter? Multimeter is used for measuring various electrical quantities like voltage, both AC and DC, and current, DC as well as AC. And multimeters are used to measure resistance, capacitance, connectivity, transistor checking, cathode and anode identification of the diode, etc. So multimeter will work over particular range. A multimeter is the most valuable tool, toolkit for embedded hardware developer. Without multimeter, you cannot measure different parameters. It is the primary debugging tool for physical contact based hardware debugging, and almost developers start debugging the hardware with the multimeter. Next one is a CRO. Cathode ray oscilloscope, CRO, is a little more sophisticated tool. By using CRO, you can check the waveform, you can capture the waveform and analyze the measurement of the signal strength. CRO is a very good tool in analyzing interference, noise in the power supply line and other signal lines. You can monitor the crystal oscillator signals from the target board by using CRO. CROs are available in both in analog and digital. As we know, CROs are available in the analog as well as the digital. In the lab, we use normally digital, nowadays digital CRO. Various measurements like phase, amplitude, all are possible with CROs. There are different companies who provide CROs like Philips, Tektronix, etc. Are they good quality CROs they will provide. Next one is the logic analyzer. Logic analyzers is the big brother of digital CRO. Like logic analyzers is used for capturing digital data like logic 1 and logic 0 from the digital circuits. So by using logic analyzer, you can analyze the digital data, whereas CRO is employed in capturing all kind of waveforms. Logic analyzer contains special connectors and clips which can be attached to the target board for capturing digital data. By it contains special connectors, you can connect it to the target board. So you just think like all these connections are minute connections. Target board debugging applications like logic analyzer captures the states of various ports. Suppose you want to check whether particular port pin is not working, that also you can check whether what type of signal you are getting in that port. Then you can check the various bus, address bus, data bus of the conditions in the target ports by using logic analyzers. Logic analyzers gives exact reflect on of what happens when the particular line of firmware is running. This is achieved by capturing the address line of the address line and data line logic of the target hardware. Most modern logic analyzers contains previous like provisions for capturing, storing the data. Whatever data you capture, that you can store and you can refer it later. And there is a provision for zooming the selected region of the captured waveform, etc. Next one is function generator. The function generator is not a debugging tool. Actually, it is a signal simulator. Function generator is capable of producing various waveforms like sine wave, square wave, sawtooth wave, etc. We have used the function generators in analog and digital electronics lab. Sometimes a target board requires some kind of periodic waveforms. For that we use this one, with particular frequency as input to some part of the board, so that we can debug it properly. That time we need a function generator. It serves the purpose of generating and supplying the required signals. Then boundary scan. As the complexity of the hardware increases, the number of chips present in the board and the interconnection among them may also increase. So the device packages used in the PCB become miniature to reduce the total board space. You know, PCB is printed circuit board. If you see the motherboard of a computer, which is so like compact, and PCB becomes here miniature to reduce the total board space occupied by them with the, and it contains, PCB contains multiple layers. With the multiple layers, each layer contains different connection among the different chips on the board. So with miniature device packages and multiple layers for the PCB, it will be very difficult to debug the hardware using magnifying glass, multimeter, or other types of device. So in that situation, we will go for a boundary scan. So what is a boundary scan? Boundary scan is a technique used for testing the interconnection among the various chips. So which supports JTAG interface. It is a hardware debugger. Chips which support boundary scan associate a boundary scan cell with each pins of the device. JTAG port contains the 5 signal lines, namely TDI, TD0, TCK, TRST and TMS from the test access port. Each device will have its own TAP. PCB also contains TAP for connecting JTAG. Boundary scan path is formed inside the board by interconnecting a device through JTAG signal lines. So you can, by using JTAG signal lines, By using boundary scan, you can see the you can see the inside board, you can scan the path found by the found inside the board. So here some of the specifications are given. Let me read out. TDI pin of the tap of the PCB connected to TDI pin of the first device. TD0 pin of the first device is connected to TDI pin of the second device. In this way, all the devices are interconnected, and TDO pin of the last JTAG device is connected to TDO pin of the tap of the PCB. So this is the diagram illustrates the connection of various ICs on the PCB, and boundary scan path. You can see a boundary scan path also. So students, so we started with in this module we started with the what are the operating system basics. In the operating system basics, we studied what is a kernel, what do you mean by different services provided by the kernel, management services, different management services, memory management, process management, time management, file system management, IO system management. We studied all those things. We studied what is a kernel. I told you kernel is nothing but of the art of the operating system. It is the abstraction layer. Then I have explained to you what is the process management, what is the primary memory management, file system management, IO system management, secondary storage management, all those things. We know the difference between what is a kernel space and a user space. We also studied what is a monolithic kernel, then what is a microkernel, then what is the difference between general purpose operating system, real time operating system, general purpose operating system and real time operating system. What is a task and process? What is a task control block? What is a process control block? Then we studied what is a deadlock. So we studied what is a task, what is the difference between task and process, what is the address space of the process, how the process mimic the processor. We studied that one. How the process mimics the processor. What is the process life cycle? What is the state transition of the process life cycle? Like from created state to ready state to running state to completed state, or in between block state, etc. Then what is a thread? How it is differ from thread, and how thread and process are differ. What is the difference between thread and process? Thread switching is faster than process switching. Why thread switching is faster than process switching? All these things we studied. Then what are the different threads? What are the standard thread standards? Thread standards from POSIX and thread standards from Windows. All these things we studied. And what do you mean by preemption? Then the difference between thread and process. Then multitasking, multi-programming, multiprocessing. Then when multitasking, how it will switch over from one process to other process. So the switching over from one process to other process is called as a context switching. Then types of multitasking. What do you mean by cooperative multitasking? What do you mean by preemptive multitasking? What do you mean by non-preemptive multitasking? Like task communications, how the task will communicate. For communication, what type of methods it will use? I told you it will use, the communication is known as, the communication between the task is known as inter-process communications. In the inter-process communication, it makes use of three techniques. One is the shared memory, second one is memory mapped object, third one is, one is the shared memory, second one is message passing, and third one is RPC, remote procedure call. In the shared memory we have two techniques. One is called as pipes. I explained you what is a pipe, and the next, other than that, what is a memory mapped object. So then in message passing also we have different techniques. Message queue, mailbox, signaling. What is a message queue? What is a mailbox technology? What is a signaling? Then in RPC we have remote procedure call. We have we studied how to establish RPC from one process to other process. The process on the same machine, on process on the different machines. when it wants to communicate with the process on the different machines, it makes use of a process on the same machine or process on the different machine. It makes use of socket. So we studied what is a socket, what is the difference between, so what is a socket? It is a logical endpoint for the two-way communication. In the socket there are two types of sockets we studied. One is INET socket. INET socket we use when the process one process on the one system communicates on the one process on the other system. Like the process on the two different systems, when they want to communicate, the sockets are INET sockets are used. But the process on the on the same system, if they want to communicate, that time unique sockets are used. In INET sockets also we have two versions, like stream sockets. Stream sockets makes use of TCP and IP protocol, and datagram sockets make use of UDP protocol. We know what is the difference between TCP protocol and UDP protocol. TCP is a connection oriented protocol, UDP is a user datagram protocol, and it is a connectionless protocol. Then task synchronization. So task synchronization process, we studied task synchronization process. Then what are the problems associated with the task synchronization problems process we studied. We studied what is a deadlock, what are the conditions favoring the deadlock, what is a deadlock, then what are the conditions favoring the deadlock, like mutual exclusion, no resource preemption, circular wait, old end wait. These are the conditions favoring the deadlock. Then how to handle the deadlock, what are the different ways to handle the deadlock, either by ignoring the deadlock or detecting and recovering the deadlock, or avoiding the deadlock or preventing the deadlock. Then task synchronization techniques like mutual exclusion techniques. In the mutual exclusion techniques we studied semaphore. There are two types of semaphore, like binary semaphore and there are two types of techniques like binary semaphore and counting semaphore. What is a binary semaphore? What is a counting semaphore? Like then how to choose RTOS? Like you need to select the RTOS based on the functional and non-functional aspects. So what are the functional requirements? What are the non-functional requirements? All these things we have studied. Then integration and testing of the embedded hardware. Once the embedded hardware is ready, you need to go for unit testing, then integration testing. Unit testing is like testing the individual component. Integration testing is testing entire components once all the components are assembled on the printed circuit board. So in integration testing of hardware and firmware we studied. So there are different methods are there. That is nothing but out of circuit programming. We studied out of circuit programming. We studied in system programming. We studied in application programming. You know what is out of circuit programming. In the out of circuit programming, programming is a way of dumping hardware like firmware, whatever you developed into the target board. So out of circuit programming, you remove the target flash memory on the target board, and you will insert that into programmer device, and you will program it. You will dump the code, whatever developed code, into that one. That is the out of circuit programming. But in system programming, what we do is we will not disassemble the memory device from the target board. We will directly dump the code by using the protocol. That protocol is called as ISP protocol, or that protocol is called as SPI protocol. SPI protocol is serial peripheral interface. By using serial peripheral interface, you will dump the code. That is, you will dump the code directly into the flash ROM or whatever may be. That is called in system programming. And the next one is in application programming. In application programming is a technique used by the firmware running in the target device for modifying selected portion of the code memory. Then how to bring up the board. So what are the things you need to check while bring up the board? Then what is the IDE environment? Then what do you mean by deassembler, decompiler? What is the debugger? Then what are the different methods of different types of debugging? Then what are the device required for hardware debugging? Like the device required for hardware debugging are like magnifying glass, then magnifying glass, multimeter, then digital CRO, then logic analyzers, then function generator, boundary scan, etc. We completed in this module.